Picture this. It's 2 a.m. and you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. Your heart's racing, your mind's a tornado of what-ifs. What if you fail at that new job you're too scared to apply for? What if you speak up at that meeting and everyone thinks you're an idiot? What if you finally tell that person how you feel and they laugh in your face, or worse, walk away? Or maybe it's not even that specific. Maybe it's just this gnawing, unshakable feeling that you're not enough, that you're stuck, that no matter what you do, you'll never escape this invisible cage holding you back. Sound familiar? Now, let's rewind to earlier today. You're at a coffee shop, scrolling through social media, watching people live their best lives. That friend who just got promoted, that co-worker who's traveling the world, that stranger who seems to have it all together. And you're sipping overpriced coffee, wondering why you're always the one on the sidelines, why you're too afraid to take the leap, why you keep sabotaging yourself before you even start. You tell yourself, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll be braver next week, I just need more time. But deep down, you know the truth. Tomorrow never comes. The fear doesn't go away, it just gets louder. Why does this happen? Why do you freeze when you need to act? Why do you shrink when you want to shine? Why do you let fear run your life, even when you know you're capable of so much more? The answer isn't what you think. It's not just bad luck, a tough childhood, or a cruel world. It's something deeper, something hidden in the shadows of your psyche. And until you face it, you'll never find your freedom. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who revolutionized our understanding of the human mind, once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." That's right, terrifying. Because to be free, to live a life that's truly yours, you have to confront the parts of yourself you've spent years running from. Your fears, your doubts, your insecurities, they're not just random emotions. They're signals, pointing you toward the work you need to do. And that work starts with understanding why fear has such a grip on you in the first place. This video isn't going to coddle you or give you fluffy affirmations. It's going to dig into the root of your fear, using Jung's psychology to show you why you're stuck and how to break free.
And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to be fearless. Jung didn't expect you to be fearless. He expected you to be brave. Brave enough to look at your shadow. Brave enough to say, I'm afraid, but I'm doing it anyway. Brave enough to choose yourself, even when it's scary. So, what's one fear you can face today? Maybe it's sending that email you've been avoiding. Maybe it's having that tough conversation. Maybe it's signing up for that class, starting that project, or just admitting to yourself what you really want. Whatever it is, take one step. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. Facing your fear is a lifelong journey, but every step you take brings you closer to freedom. Carl Jung gave us the tools to understand our psyche, to confront our shadow, to become who we were meant to be. Now, it's up to you to use them. If this video hit home, if it stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Comment below, I choose to face my fear. Make it real, make it public. Let this be your first act of courage. And if you want to go deeper, check out my ebook, Beyond the Shadow, linked in the pinned comment. It's a practical guide to Jung's psychology with exercises, stories, and tools to help you integrate your shadow and live authentically. Finally, subscribe and hit the bell icon. We're building a community of people who are done playing small, who are ready to face their fears and claim their freedom. The next video is just as powerful, so don't miss it. Until you face your fear, you'll never find your freedom. But when you do, the world opens up. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. You're not just existing, you're alive. So go out there, be brave, and become who you truly are. We'll explore the shadow, the persona, the archetypes, and the unconscious forces shaping your life. We'll tell stories, real, raw, sometimes funny, sometimes painful, that bring these ideas to life. And most importantly, we'll give you practical tools to face your fear step by step until you're no longer a prisoner of your own mind. Because, as Jung also said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Are you ready to stop calling it fate? Are you ready to take back your power? Then let's dive in. Let's start with a story. Meet Sarah. She's 32, works a decent job in marketing, lives in a cozy apartment with her cat, and by all accounts has a good life. But Sarah's miserable. She hates her job, not because it's terrible, but because it's not what she wants. She's always dreamed of starting her own graphic design business, but every time she thinks about quitting, her stomach knots up. What if she fails? What if she runs out of money? What if everyone thinks she's crazy for throwing away a stable career? So she stays, year after year, telling herself she's playing it safe. Then there's her personal life. Sarah's been in a relationship for 3 years with a guy named Mark. Mark's not a bad person, but he's not great either. He's dismissive, forgets important dates, and makes little jabs about her artsy hobbies. Sarah knows she deserves better, but the thought of being alone terrifies her. What if she never finds someone else? What if Mark's the best she can do? So she stays, swallowing her resentment, hoping he'll change. And then there's the smaller stuff. Sarah wants to join a local art class, but she's scared she'll be the worst one there. She wants to speak up in meetings, but she's afraid her ideas will sound stupid. She wants to travel solo, but she's paranoid about getting lost or looking like a loner. Every day, Sarah makes choices, not based on what she wants, but on what she's afraid of. And every day, her world gets a little smaller. Sound like anyone you know? Maybe it's you. Maybe it's not as dramatic as Sarah's story, but you felt that same invisible cage. The job you stay in because it's secure, the relationship you tolerate because it's better than nothing, the dreams you shelve because they're too risky, the words you don't say, the chances you don't take, the life you don't live, all because of fear.
But here's the kicker. Fear isn't just an emotion, it's a teacher. Jung believed that everything in your psyche, including your fears, has a purpose. They're not there to torture you, they're there to show you where you're out of alignment with yourself. Your fear of failure, it's pointing to a belief that you're not enough. Your fear of rejection, it's tied to a need for external validation. Your fear of being alone, it's a sign you haven't learned to love your own company. Every fear is a doorway to a deeper truth, and until you walk through that doorway, you'll stay trapped. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of yourself you've repressed, denied, or buried because you think they're too ugly, too weak, or too dangerous to face. Your shadow isn't just your flaws or your failures, it's also your untapped potential, your unexpressed desires, your raw, authentic self. And when you ignore it, it doesn't disappear. It festers, manifesting as fear, anxiety, self-sabotage, or that vague sense of something's missing. As Jung put it, what you resist persists. So, why are you so afraid? Let's go deeper. Imagine you're a kid again. You're 5 years old, bursting with energy, dreaming of being an astronaut, a painter, a superhero. You're fearless, until you're not. Maybe your parents laughed when you said you wanted to fly to the moon. Maybe a teacher scolded you for coloring outside the lines. Maybe a bully mocked you for crying when you fell off your bike. Little by little, you learned that certain parts of you weren't welcome. Your big dreams were unrealistic. Your emotions were too much. Your mistakes were embarrassing. So, you started hiding those parts, building a version of yourself that felt safer, more acceptable. Fast forward to today, that kid is still inside you, but they're buried under layers of conditioning. You've spent years crafting what Jung called the persona, the social mask you wear to fit in. Your persona is the good employee, the loyal friend, the responsible adult. It's the version of you that smiles when you're dying inside, that says I'm fine when you're falling apart, that avoids conflict at all costs. And while your persona helps you navigate the world, it comes at a price. It disconnects you from your true self.
Here's where the shadow comes in. Every time you suppress a part of yourself, your anger, your ambition, your vulnerability, it gets shoved into the shadow. And the shadow doesn't just sit there quietly. It's like a rebellious teenager banging on the walls of your psyche, demanding to be heard. When you're afraid to take a risk, that's your shadow reminding you of the dreams you've abandoned. When you're paralyzed by what others think, that's your shadow exposing your need for approval. When you stay in a toxic situation, that's your shadow showing you where you've lost your self-worth. Let's go back to Sarah. Her fear of quitting her job isn't just about money, it's about her shadow. As a kid, her parents drilled into her that security was everything. They praised her for being practical, for getting good grades, for following the rules. But when she showed them her sketchbook, they brushed it off. That's a nice hobby, honey, but you need a real career. So Sarah buried her creativity, her passion, her wild artistic soul. Now, every time she thinks about starting her business, her shadow screams, "Who do you think you are? You're not talented enough. You'll fail." That's not her voice. It's the voice of her repressed dreams, twisted into fear. Or take her relationship with Mark. Sarah's afraid to leave because she's terrified of being alone. Why? Because as a teenager, she was the shy kid who never got invited to parties. She felt invisible, unworthy, unlovable. So she buried that pain, vowing to never be that girl again. Now her shadow whispers, "If you leave Mark, you'll be alone forever. No one else will want you." That fear isn't about Mark. It's about the lonely teenager she's never healed. Your fears work the same way. They're not random. They're rooted in your shadow, in the parts of yourself you've rejected. And until you face them, they'll keep running the show. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In other words, freedom doesn't come from pretending you're fearless. It comes from shining a light on what scares you most.
To understand your fear, we need to zoom out a bit. Jung believed that our psyche isn't just shaped by personal experiences, it's also influenced by universal patterns called archetypes. These are like blueprints in the collective unconscious, shared by all humans across time and culture. Archetypes show up in myths, stories, dreams, and yes, your everyday life. And when it comes to fear, a few key archetypes play a starring role. First, meet the hero. You know this one, the brave warrior who slays dragons, saves the day, and never backs down. The hero lives in all of us, but when you're stuck in fear, your hero is asleep. Instead of facing your dragons, like that tough conversation or that big career move, you hide, hoping someone else will save you. But here's the thing. In Jung's view, the hero's journey isn't about external battles. It's about confronting your inner demons, your shadow. Every time you face a fear, you're stepping into your hero archetype, reclaiming your power. Then there's the victim. This archetype loves to whisper, "It's not fair. Why me? I can't do this." The victim keeps you small, convincing you that you're powerless, that your fears are too big to overcome. Sarah's victim archetype tells her, "You can't start a business, you'll lose everything. You can't leave Mark, you'll never find love." We all fall into the victim trap sometimes, but staying there is a choice. The antidote? Activate your hero. Finally, there's the trickster. This archetype is sneaky. It's the voice that distracts you from your fear with excuses, procrastination, or self-sabotage. The trickster says, "You don't need to deal with this now. Have another Netflix binge. Scroll through X for 3 hours. You'll figure it out later."
The trickster keeps you stuck in a loop, avoiding the real work of facing your shadow. But it's also a teacher. It shows you where you're lying to yourself. These archetypes are always at play in your psyche, shaping how you respond to fear. The question is, which archetype are you letting run the show? Are you the hero, facing your fears head-on, the victim, shrinking in their shadow, or the trickster, dodging them altogether? Jung believed that by recognizing these patterns, you can choose which archetype to embody, and that choice is the first step toward freedom.
Let's switch gears and tell another story. This one's about Mike, a 40-year-old accountant who's been miserable for as long as he can remember. Mike's not miserable because his life is terrible. He's got a stable job, a nice house, a family who loves him. But he feels like he's living someone else's life. Growing up, Mike wanted to be a musician. He was obsessed with his guitar, writing songs in his bedroom, dreaming of playing gigs. But his dad, a no-nonsense guy, told him, "Music's for dreamers, get a real job." So Mike did. He went to college, got his CPA, and buried his guitar in the closet. Now, Mike's terrified of change. He hates his job, but the thought of leaving makes him physically sick. What if he can't provide for his family? What if he's too old to start over? What if he's not even that good at music anymore? So he stays, numbing himself with beer and football, snapping at his kids when he's stressed, feeling like a fraud. Mike's fear isn't just about failure, it's about facing the truth. He betrayed himself. He chose safety over his soul, and now his shadow is screaming for attention. Mike's story isn't unique. We all tell ourselves stories that keep us stuck. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old. I don't deserve better. These aren't facts, they're narratives rooted in your shadow, reinforced by years of conditioning. Jung called this the complex, a cluster of unconscious beliefs that shape how you see yourself and the world. Your complex might tell you you're unlovable, unworthy, or doomed to fail. And every time you avoid a risk, you're proving that complex right. Here's a funny example. My friend Lisa once told me she was terrified of public speaking. She'd get sweaty palms just thinking about it. One day, she had to give a presentation at work, and she spent weeks obsessing over it. She practiced in front of her dog, who was, by the way, not impressed. The day of the presentation, Lisa was a wreck, convinced she'd bomb. But you know what? She did it. Was it perfect? Nope. She stumbled over a few words, forgot a slide, and accidentally called her boss Bob instead of Rob. But she survived. And afterward, people came up to her saying, "Great job!" Lisa realized her fear wasn't about speaking, it was about her complex telling her she wasn't good enough. Facing that fear didn't just make her a better speaker, it made her stronger, period. Your fears are tied to your stories, and those stories are tied to your shadow. To break free, you need to rewrite the narrative. Not by pretending you're fearless, but by proving to yourself, one small step at a time, that your fears don't define you.
So, how do you face your fear? How do you integrate your shadow, wake up your hero, and break the cycle? Jung's psychology gives us a roadmap, and it's not as complicated as it sounds. It's about small, intentional acts of courage, repeated over time, until fear no longer runs your life. Here are 7 practical tools to get you started, rooted in Jung's ideas and real-world experience. 1. Name your fear. You can't fight what you can't see. Start by getting specific. What are you afraid of? Failure? Rejection? Being alone? Write it down. Be brutally honest. Jung said, "What you resist persists." Naming your fear brings it into the light, where it loses some of its power. For example, Sarah wrote, "I'm afraid of failing at my business and proving I'm not talented. Seeing it on paper made it less overwhelming. She realized it was just a thought, not a fact. 2. Dialogue with your shadow. This might sound woo-woo, but it's one of Jung's most powerful techniques. Set aside 10 minutes, grab a journal, and have a conversation with your fear. Ask it, why are you here? What are you protecting me from? What do you want me to know? Let the answers flow without judgment. Sarah tried this and was shocked when her fear said, I'm keeping you safe so you don't get hurt like you did as a kid. This helped her see her fear as a misguided protector, not an enemy. 3. Take micro-actions. You don't need to quit your job or end a relationship overnight. Start small. If you're afraid of speaking up, say one thing in a meeting. If you're scared of rejection, ask a friend for a small favor. If you're terrified of failure, try a low-stakes hobby. These micro-actions build what Jung called ego strength, the confidence to face bigger challenges. Mike, the accountant, started playing his guitar again, just 10 minutes a day. It wasn't a career change, but it reconnected him to his passion. 4. Reframe failure. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. Jung believed that growth comes from integrating opposites, like success and failure, light and dark. Every time you fail, you're learning something about yourself. Lisa's botched presentation? It taught her she could survive embarrassment, reframe failure as feedback, and it loses its sting.
5. Surround yourself with allies. Your environment matters. If you're surrounded by naysayers or toxic people, your fears will thrive. Seek out people who lift you up, who challenge you to grow, who see your potential. Jung emphasized the importance of community in individuation, the process of becoming your true self. Sarah joined an online group for aspiring entrepreneurs, and their encouragement gave her the push she needed to start her side hustle. 6. Embrace solitude. Fear of being alone is one of the biggest barriers to freedom. Jung said, loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. Spend time alone, without distractions. Meditate, journal, or just sit with your thoughts. This builds what Jung called the self, your inner core, the part of you that doesn't need external validation. Sarah started taking solo walks, and it helped her realize she didn't need Mark to feel whole. 7. Commit to the long game. Facing your fear isn't a one-time event, it's a lifelong practice. Jung's concept of individuation is about constantly integrating your shadow, refining your persona, and aligning with yourself. There will be setbacks, you'll feel afraid again, but every step you take makes you stronger. As Jung put it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are.
Here's the paradox. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't failure, it's freedom. When you start facing your fears, you'll notice something strange. People around you might push back. Your friends might call you selfish for setting boundaries. Your family might guilt-trip you for chasing your dreams. Your own mind might scream, "Who do you think you are?" This is what Jung called the fear of the self, the terror of stepping into your full potential. Why is freedom so scary? Because it comes with responsibility. When you stop blaming others, when you stop hiding behind fear, you have to own your life. No more excuses, no more playing small. Sarah felt this when she finally launched her design business. She was thrilled, but also overwhelmed. What if I succeed, she thought. What if I have to keep this up? What if I can't go back to playing it safe? That's the hero's journey. You don't just slay the dragon, you become the dragon, fierce and free. There's another story here about a woman named Aisha. Aisha was a single mum who worked 2 jobs to support her kids. She was terrified of slowing down because she thought her family would fall apart. But deep down, she wanted to go back to school, to become a teacher, to live a life she'd always felt called to. Her fear wasn't just about money, it was about freedom. What if she succeeded? What if she outgrew her old life? What if, she asked herself. With therapy, Aisha started taking night classes, 1 at a time. It was grueling, but every A she earned felt like a victory. Today, Aisha's a high school teacher, inspiring her students. Her fear didn't disappear, she still worries, but she learned to move through it, 1 brave choice at a time. Let's bring it all together. Jung believed that your external reality is a mirror of your unconscious. The fears you face, the challenges you avoid, the life you live, they all reflect how you relate to yourself. If you're tired of feeling stuck, scared, or small, it's time to look in the mirror. Not to criticize yourself, but to see the truth. Your fear isn't your enemy, it's your guide. It's showing you where your shadow needs healing, where your hero needs to wake up, where yourself needs to shine. Every time you face a fear, you're not just overcoming an obstacle, you're becoming more whole. You're integrating the parts of yourself you've rejected, reclaiming the power you've lost, rewriting the story.